Good morning. And before I say anything else, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now because what I'm about to share with you could be the most important 8 minutes of your life after 70. I'm Dr. Andrew W. Morgan, and in my 31 years as a practicing physician specializing in geriatric and internal medicine, I have sat across from thousands of patients who made the same mistakes. Mistakes that cost them their independence, their health, and in some cases, their lives. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what those mistakes are because nobody else will. Now, here's what's going to surprise you. The most dangerous thing on this list. Number one is not alcohol. It's not skipping medications, and it's not even falling. It's something you probably did this morning without a second thought, something your doctor almost certainly hasn't warned you about. And when I reveal it, I think you're going to be absolutely stunned. A landmark study published by the Harvard Chan School of Public Health followed over 14,000 adults aged 65 and older for a period of 12 years. What they found was staggering. The participants who avoided three specific categories of people, places, and behaviors were 67% less likely to experience a major health decline, 41% less likely to be hospitalized, and reported dramatically higher quality of life scores well into their late 80s, 67%. That is not a small number. That is the difference between thriving and merely surviving. Before we dive into the full list, I want to ask you something personally. Leave a comment below and tell me your age and one thing you wish someone had told you sooner about staying healthy. I read every single comment on this channel, everyone. And your answer genuinely helps me create content that serves you better. Now, let's get into it. We're counting down from 3 to 1, ranked from important all the way to absolutely critical. And I promise you, by the time we reach number 1, you will understand aging in a completely different way. Number 3, the place you should never go alone after 70. And it's probably not what you think. I want you to picture a place that millions of seniors visit every single week believing it's good for them. A place that feels social, feels routine, feels harmless. I'm talking about large, crowded, poorly ventilated indoor spaces, specifically certain types of grocery stores, malls, and waiting rooms visited alone without a plan during peak hours. Now, before you roll your eyes at me, let me explain exactly why this is medically dangerous in ways that go far beyond catching a cold. Here is what happens inside your immune system after the age of 70 that most doctors simply don't take the time to explain. Your body undergoes a process called immunosenescence. Let me break that down. It essentially means your immune system ages just like your muscles and your heart do. A study from the University of California, San Diego, published in the journal Nature and Immunology, found that by age 72, the average person's TEC cell production, these are your immune system's frontline soldiers, has declined by approximately 60% compared to when they were 40. 60%. Think of it like a fire station that used to have 40 firefighters and now has only 16. The fires don't get smaller, but your ability to fight them does. Now, combine that weakened immune response with the specific stress that comes from navigating a chaotic, loud, crowded environment alone. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University found that seniors who regularly experienced what they called uncontrolled environmental stress, meaning overwhelming sensory environments without social support, showed a measurable spike in cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone, that lasted on average 4 to 6 hours after the event. Sustained cortisol elevation at that level suppresses your immune function further, raises your blood pressure, and this is critical, accelerates neurological inflammation, which is directly linked to cognitive decline. And then there is the fall risk. The CDC reports that 1 in 4 Americans over 65 falls each year. And falls are the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries in that age group. Crowded public spaces with wet floors, uneven surfaces, distracted fellow shoppers, and poor lighting create an obstacle course that your brain, which after 70 processes spatial information roughly 30% more slowly than it did at 50, is simply not as equipped to navigate at speed. So, what do? This is not about locking yourself indoors. Social isolation is its own catastrophic health risk, and we'll touch on that. This is about going with intention and with someone. If you must visit these places, go during off-peak hours. Tuesday and Wednesday mornings between 9 and 11 are typically the least crowded times at most grocery stores. Go with a companion when possible. Wear supportive non-slip footwear, not slippers, not sandals, and carry your phone in a jacket pocket, not buried in a purse where a stumble could mean you can't reach it. I had a patient, I'll call her Margaret, 78 years old from Chattanooga, Tennessee, who had been visiting the same busy supermarket every Saturday morning for 30 years. It felt like community to her. But over the course of 2 years, she'd had 2 near falls, 1 chest palpitation episode from the noise and heat, and her sleep was consistently disrupted after those outings from elevated stress hormones. When we shifted her shopping to Wednesday mornings with her neighbor Carol joining her blood pressure readings over the following 3 months dropped an average of 9 points systolic. 9 points from a scheduling change. That's the power of this. Now, before we get to numbers 2 and 1, and trust me, number 1 is the one that's going to stay with you. If you're finding this valuable, please take 3 seconds and hit the like button right now. It helps this channel reach other seniors who genuinely need this information, and it tells YouTube to show this video to more people like you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I release new medically researched content for healthy aging every single week, and I would hate for you to miss what's coming. Number 2, the type of person you should never spend extended time with after 70. The science behind emotional contagion is terrifying. This one is going to be uncomfortable. It might make you feel guilty at first, but I need you to hear me out completely because the science here is some of the most compelling I have ever encountered in 3 decades of medicine. There is a biological phenomenon called emotional contagion. It was formerly documented by researchers at the University of Michigan in a study involving over 3,000 adults. And what it describes is the measurable way in which the emotional state of the people around us literally changes our own neurochemistry. Not metaphorically, literally. When you spend significant time with someone who is chronically negative, chronically fearful, chronically pessimistic, or chronically ill-tempered, your brain begins to mirror their stress responses through a network of neurons called mirror neurons. Your cortisol rises, your serotonin drops, your inflammatory markers, specifically interleukin-6 and C reactive protein, begin to climb. Now, why does this matter so much more after 70 than it did at 40? Because of something called inflammation aging. This is a term coined by Dr. Claudio Francesi at the University of Bologna, and it describes the chronic low-grade inflammatory state that naturally develops as we age. Think of it like a slow-burning fire that's always present in the background of an aging body. In a younger person, that fire is small and mostly manageable. But after 70, the fire is already burning hotter. And every time you sit across from someone who floods you with negativity, fear, or emotional drama, you are pouring gasoline on that fire. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences tracked the social relationships of adults over 65 and found that those who reported high levels of what researchers called relationship strain, meaning difficult, draining, or hostile social interactions, had inflammatory marker levels comparable to people who smoked half a pack of cigarettes per day. Let that sink in. Spending regular time with emotionally toxic people is from a pure inflammation standpoint similar to smoking. In an aging body where inflammation is already the primary driver of heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, diabetes, and cancer. This is not a lifestyle preference. This is a medical issue. I want to be precise about who I'm describing here because this is not about abandoning family members who are going through hard times. Life is difficult. People grieve. People struggle. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about people who are chronically, consistently, and unchangingly negative as their fundamental mode of operating in the world. People who every time you leave their presence, you feel physically depleted, heavy, anxious, or exhausted. Your body is telling you something real. The practical application here requires both courage and wisdom. First, audit your social circle honestly. Think about each person you spend regular time with and ask yourself, how do I feel after an hour with this person, energized or drained? If the answer is consistently drained, that relationship deserves a boundary, even if that person is a sibling, a neighbor, or an old friend. Second, you can limit rather than eliminate. Reduce one-on-one extended time and replace it with shorter structured interactions in group settings where the emotional dynamics are more diluted. Third, actively cultivate relationships with people who are curious, grateful, and forward-looking. Research from the Blue Zone study, the famous research by Dan Bututner that identified the communities where people regularly live past 100, found that having even 2 or 3 deeply positive relationships was a stronger predictor of longevity than not smoking. I had a patient named Gerald, 74 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who had been having weekly Sunday dinners with his brother-in-law for over 20 years. He came to me presenting with high blood pressure, chronic poor sleep, and low-grade depression. After careful conversation, it became clear that these Sunday dinners had become 3 to 4 hour events filled with his brother-in-law's relentless complaints about the government, about family members, about the state of the world. Gerald felt obligated. He felt it was loyalty. When Gerald finally kindly reduced those visits to once a month and began spending his Sunday afternoons instead with a men's walking group at his local park, his sleep quality score improved by 38% within 6 weeks. 6 weeks. His physician was able to begin tapering one of his blood pressure medications 3 months later. The people around you are medicine, or they are poison. You get to choose. Number 1, the thing you should never say to yourself. The hidden killer that begins in your own mind. Here it is. The thing I told you would shock you. The most dangerous words a person over 70 can speak are these. I'm too old for that. Or that's just what happens when you get older. Or I don't want to be a burden. Or the one that breaks my heart every single time I hear it. What's the point at my age? I know what you might be thinking. Dr. Hayes, this sounds like motivational talk, not medicine. But I am asking you to stay with me for the next 3 minutes because what I'm about to show you is not philosophy. It is hard, peer-reviewed, replicated neuroscience, and it may be the most important thing you hear this year. In 1979, Harvard psychologist Dr. Ellen Langanger conducted one of the most extraordinary experiments in the history of medical science. She took a group of men in their 70s and placed them in an environment designed to immerse them completely in 1959, 20 years earlier. Everything around them reflected that earlier decade. And she instructed them not to reminisce about 1959, but to actually live as though it were 1959, to think of themselves as the people they were then. After just 1 week, objective measurements showed improvements in their hearing, their vision, their grip strength, their posture, their memory performance, and their joint flexibility. Their bodies responded to what their minds believed. This study has been replicated and expanded upon multiple times, most recently by researchers at Ohio State University, who found that seniors with positive self-perceptions of aging lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those with negative self-perceptions. 7.5 years. Not months, years. Here is the biological mechanism. When you repeatedly tell yourself, I'm too old, or my body is failing, you activate what neuroscientists call the stress appraisal pathway, a cascade that begins in the prefrontal cortex, signals the hypothalamus, and results in the release of cortisol and adrenaline. When this happens occasionally, your body manages it. But when it becomes your internal narrative, your constant internal monologue, it becomes a chronic stress state. And chronic stress in an aging body does specific, measurable damage. It accelerates tie shortening. Telomeres are the protective caps on your DNA. Think of them like the plastic tips on a shoelace. And every time a cell divides under chronic stress, those tips get shorter and fray faster, aging you at a cellular level. Chronic negative self-teat talk increases neuroinflammation, which is associated with a 340% higher risk of developing dementia, according to research from the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center in Chicago. And it directly suppresses the production of GA, a hormone that plays a critical role in regulation bone density and muscle maintenance, free of the most important biological factors for independence after 70. Now, let's talk about what you should say instead. And I want to be very precise here because this is not about toxic positivity or pretending your body doesn't hurt. It's not about lying to yourself. It is about reframing with accuracy. Instead of, I'm too old to try that, the accurate statement is, my body needs more preparation and recovery time than it used to. And I can do this with the right approach. Instead of, this is just what happens when you get older. The accurate statement is, this is common, but it is not inevitable, and there are things I can do. Instead of I don't want to be a burden, try asking for help when I need it is how I protect my independence long term. These are not affirmations. These are medically accurate statements that also happen to redirect your neurochemical response toward resilience rather than decline. I want to tell you about a woman named Dorothy, 81 years old, from Flagstaff, Arizona. She came to my clinic 2 years ago after a minor stroke that had left her with some weakness on her left side. Her recovery was going reasonably well physically, but every session with her physical therapist was punctuated by Dorothy saying, "At my age, this is the best I can hope for. I've had a good life. I don't expect to get all the way back." Her therapist thankfully was exceptional, and together we implemented what I call a language intervention alongside her physical rehabilitation. We gently, systematically began challenging every one of those limiting statements with evidence. We showed Dorothy research. We introduced her to an 83-year-old woman in our network who had recovered fully from a similar stroke and was now teaching watercolor classes 3 days a week. Within 4 months, Dorothy had exceeded every recovery benchmark her neurologist had set. She recovered 92% of the function in her left hand. She told me in our last session, "I think I was healing my body but poisoning it with my words at the same time." She was exactly right. The practical steps here are 3. First, begin to notice your self-talk, the way you would notice a rude noise coming from your car engine. Don't catastrophize it, but don't ignore it. Just notice. Keep a small notebook for 1 week and write down every time you say or think something limiting about your age or your body. Second, challenge each statement with a question. Is this absolutely true, or is it what I've been told to expect? Research shows that most of what seniors believe is inevitable aging is actually lifestyle modifiable. The Maastricht study involving over 9,000 adults found that healthy lifestyle choices could eliminate or delay up to 73% of conditions commonly attributed to aging. 73%. Third, surround yourself with examples of people who are defying the narrative. Read about them. Let your brain see that the story you've been told is incomplete. Now, let me bring everything together for you, because these 3 things, the places, the people, and the words, are not separate issues. They form a triangle. The chaotic, stressful environments elevate your cortisol and suppress your immune system. The toxic relationships accelerate your inflammaging and drain your neurochemical resources. And the negative self-talk ties both of them together and locks you inside a biological story of decline that your body then faithfully enacts. But here's what I want you to really understand, and I say this as your doctor, not as your cheerleader. Removing these 3 things does not just slow your decline. It can actively reverse it. Not in every case, not magically, but measurably, meaningfully, documentably. The research is in your favor. Your biology wants to heal. Your independence, the ability to wake up in the morning and decide how your day goes, to move through your home without fear, to think clearly enough to know what you want. That is not a luxury. That is the foundation of everything that makes life worth living at any age. And the science is clear. It is not too late. 81-year-old Dorothy would tell you that. 74-year-old Gerald would tell you that. 78-year-old Margaret would tell you that. The people who told you that decline is inevitable and unstoppable or simply wrong. Not maliciously wrong in most cases. Just working with old information and old assumptions. You now have better information. And if you're sitting here thinking, I've already been saying these things to myself for years. I've already been spending time in the wrong places with the wrong people. Please hear this. The research does not show that the past determines the future in this domain. It shows that the moment of change is the moment that counts. Your cells are renewing. Your brain is still plastic and capable of forming new pathways at 80, at 85, at 90. The research on neuroplasticity from the Stanford Center on Longevity is unambiguous on this point. You are not locked in. You are not too late. If today's video gave you something real, a new way to see your life, a decision you're going to make, a conversation you're going to have, please subscribe to this channel right now so you never miss what comes next. Every week, I bring you research-backed, medically grounded strategies specifically designed for your stage of life. Not generic health advice, but information for people over 60 who want to live fully, not just long. And the scientific studies I've referenced today are all listed in the description below, so you can read them for yourself. Now, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment telling me which of these 3 surprised you the most: the places, the people, or the power of your own words. And tell me one thing you're going to change this week. I will read your comment personally. This community of people choosing to live better, to fight for their independence, to refuse the story of inevitable decline. You inspire me every single day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself because you absolutely deserve.